This is a story about our ozone. When I was a kid, long before 1990, in California, we always were turning off our lights, conserving water, energy, gas, electricity. We were cultured to be environmentalist. Recycling things originally would happen at the garbage dumps, and then we did it in our own houses and separated into cans. And we started recycling everything. Because CFCs, or chlorofluorocarbons, the chlorine gas, which is high poison to us, would rise up to the ozone layer, which is O3, and rip one of the oxygen molecules off and make it O2 and put a hole and thin out our ozone layer. Now, when I was a kid, we were unique in the whole universe as Earth, the blue marble, because we had like a quadrifecta of luck and perfect chance for life. You see, we had to be in the Goldilocks zone around a star. Not too far, not too close. And there had to be water. If we were too far away, the water would freeze. If we were too close, the water would just evaporate. But since we had that Goldilocks zone and water, we got an ozone atmosphere. And because this atmosphere began to block parts of the UV spectrum which were harmful, called UVC. They say that O3 blocks UVC, which has always been untrue. Then they'll measure UVC on the ground and say, oh, that's a measure of the weakness of the O3 ozone that protects Earth. But as this went forward, this was just called greenhouse gases and the hole in the ozone. And then there was a hole in the ozone all of a sudden in like 1990 over the North Pole. And so this meant that there was less UV protection over the ice, which meant that it was melting faster, which meant the oceans were cooling, but yet the air was heating, and then that contrast and conflict will create climate chaos. So we knew climate chaos was some long-range, impossible thing, but that was long before we created a plastic island in the middle of the Pacific. But before I get too far away from California, let me make the point that California is very expensive to live in. It is all based upon the real estate prices, which basically is a huge testament to the weather. Southern California, even San Diego, the only real beach life on the West Coast is south of LA. Because that's only when the water gets warm enough to tolerate. By the time you get to LA, it's 100 degrees in LA, but the water's getting cool. By the time you get to Santa Barbara, you got to wear a wetsuit. By the time you get to Santa Cruz in Monterey, you're living in the fog and the water's freezing. And by the time you get to San Francisco, there's great white sharks and the water's ice cold. And you try to be a tough guy and not swim with a wetsuit. And then by the time you get to Lost Coast of California, they call it the Lost Coast for a reason. It's basically uninhabitable because of fog and coldness. But the middle, then, has a gigantic area of temperate climate. And most of the state has a temperate climate. Because there's so many elevation changes and distances from the coast and so much land area of that. It gives a valley that runs north and south like 500 or 900 miles in between the Sierra Nevadas and the coast. So you get this long, changing north-south climate. And in the middle, San Francisco, once you kind of come inland to Oakland, Oakland has some of the best weather in all the world. It's unbelievable how temperate it's always been. So the price to live here was based upon how temperate the weather's always been. I know that sounds a little strange, but it means that we have buildings that don't need air conditioning or heaters. A fireplace will suffice. You can live most of the day, most of the year on the porch or out back, working outside. It's pleasant. The skies were always blue. We wouldn't see rain between like May and November. Every Christmas I ever had was blue skies. Weather didn't come out of nowhere. It took weeks for weather to roll in. And that would come in for a season. The price of California was always because it was temperate. The weather was so calm and pristine and comfortable year-round. Even if you're on the coast or inland, The further inland you got, you would get triple digits in the valleys. But there you were farming and growing the food for all of America. Or you were in the Sierra Nevadas and it would snow. There's Tahoe up there. Or you were on the coast in San Francisco. San Francisco is the coldest summer you'll ever spend because of the fog. But once you get into Oakland and the Bay Area, it's just always been 75 degrees, like 60% of the year, and sunny and clear, even in the winter. It's temperate. So now all of a sudden, California's getting real hot. All these places that were used to this coastal fog are getting triple digits. And for some reason, nobody's talking about it. It kind of freaks me out.
Is on track to become the hottest year on record, which will mark 3 years in a row that the world's global temperatures have set records. NASA scientists also say that global temperature and Arctic sea ice are continuing their decades-long trends of change. NASA is confirming the prophecies describing the record-setting elevation of the heating of the earth, just as if the earth is inside an oven, like it says in the prophecy of Malachi 4. For behold, the day is coming, burning like an oven, and the day which is coming shall burn them up, says the Lord of hosts. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute and Cypress Institute have calculated that regions of the earth will soon become so hot that humans cannot live there, rendering some regions unlivable, causing pressure to migrate. These signs are warning of the fulfillment of the prophecies concerning the end of the age and a call to turn to God and prepare for the return of Jesus Christ. SignsOfTheLastDays.org.
Okay, so let's check out the fourth consecutive year of record heat temperatures, 2017. The Great Southwest U.S. heat wave of 2017 is gradually diminishing, but it has left behind hundreds of smashed heat records, including at least 4 all-time. Iranian city soars to record 129 degrees. Western heat wave may near all-time record highs in Oregon, Washington rare triple digits. Sacramento ends July with most days over 90 degrees. San Antonio heat a record breaker for second day in a row. Heat wave will scorch California and the Southwest. Ahvaz, Iran reached 129 degrees, Earth's hottest temperature ever. California sees some of the highest temperatures ever recorded amid heat wave. June 21st, 2017. Palm Springs hits new record high temperatures. A slew of heat records could fall. July 5th, 2017. Extreme heat seared the Southwest this week. 131-year-old heat record shattered in downtown L.A. Phoenix sets heat record for third day in a row. This is a UV detector. That's a UV index. It maxes out at 8. If you get medical advice from a doctor, he doesn't give you any different advice after 8.1 than he gives you for 11. 11's off the scale. This is the UV index forecast for America, April 14th, 2017. You can see that purple is creeping up from the bottom.
Out here, Phoenix, Arizona, we had 50 flights canceled at the main airport, Sky Harbor. It was so hot, the days that it reached 120, I think 119. I guess what it did, it thinned the air so much that some of the planes, the way they were designed, couldn't get off the ground at those temperatures. Unbelievable. Yes, if you didn't have your car covered in the shade, and if it was parked outside, here's a cactus, and this is its environment. It's used to the heat. Couldn't hang this time around. It was just a different kind of heat. Melted a plastic mailbox.
Wait, what? Airplanes can't fly because it's too hot. This is from Wired. That's crazy. No, not if you understand the science behind it. Airplanes need compressed air to fly on. Electricity usage hits record high amid scorching Arizona heat wave. I don't know if that's 6:45 p.m. or a.m., but either way, dude, 122 is going to ruin all your electricity. Electricity used to be cheap and free, but now that they flipped it on us, this is absolutely unaffordable. And it's only going to get hotter. The president just spent $2 million redoing the air conditioning in the White House. Dude, there's places all over America with no air conditioning. This one I can't get over. It's obviously melted by something that's not fire, because it'd be scorched and black. Much like the rest of these plastics, everything here is developed. All of our manufacturing accounts for heat that is normal throughout the day, throughout the year. This is a cactus. This is actually tweeted by Peter Corbett. It's so hot in Arizona, our cactus melted. Record heat, all-time record, daily record. These, you can just read them. They're high. They're only a temperature a point up, but we're talking about in the desert, in Arizona, where it's already hot. These are through the roof. And then we go over across the pond. They're talking about the summer of Lucifer over there.
We have one similar to this, and I don't know.
And this thing, that's not fire.
And I think the governor's declared a state of emergency for wildfires out here. Because it's not going to take much.
So then these are our images. I can talk over these while you see them. 2016 was the hottest. Well, so was 2015. So was 2014. So was this year. So what do you think next year is going to be? It's only getting hotter outside. And it's not us. It's not the ozone. It's not Aquanet hairspray. They get us in cities. They drum us up with global warming. We know the air is polluted. But that's not going to cause this kind of heat. They've been mentally working us for this moment in time so that we do not feel the heat or sense the warning from the Creator. Up, 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 up. Record heat scorches Western Europe. Countries cope with June extremes. 2016 compared with 1891 to 2010. You see how there's no blue there? As in comparison, relative to everything in our past, it's all red or white. Only getting hotter. Much warmer than average. Record warmest. Look at the record warmest. That's in a year where it was a record before that and a record before that. This is not chemtrails. They aren't doing this with HAARP. This is the UV index. You can see that after 8 to 10, it says there's really nothing else to do. Wear a hat and sunglasses, don't go outside. The 9 and the 10 is just to make it seem like there's more of a range for us to go into. You can see that UV index creeping up. The people in Mexico City right now, their UV index is like 15. Bro, that's through the roof.
What goes down the drain?
Think about what goes down the drain.
Laundry detergent,
Dish soap.
Shampoo.
All that stuff.
All those chemicals.
They go through sewage treatment plants.
But even though sewage is treated, these chemicals can still end up in soil,
In rivers.
in lakes.
End up in wildlife.
And some of these chemicals may end up in your water supply.
And did you ever stop to think?
But what kinds of chemicals are in those cleaning products?
Surfactants, used to get the dirt out.
That go down the drain and break down into environmental estrogens.
Chemicals like nonylphenol and octylphenol, chemicals that can get into the environment.
And scientists know these environmental estrogens harm wildlife. They know they make male fish develop more like female fish.
All the environmental estrogens that may wash down your drain.
From cleaning products and personal care products, get into the environment and can add up
And put you at risk for breast cancer.
Can put other women at risk for breast cancer.
Did you know that throwing old electronics into trash can contaminate our environment too?
Electronics like cell phones, computers.
PDAs you don't want anymore.
They contain heavy metal,
Heavy metals like nickel and cadmium, found in batteries.
like lead, found in circuit boards and TV and computer monitors.
Scientists know that these heavy metals are also environmental estrogens.
And when old electronics get thrown into landfills, these heavy metals can leach into the soil,
Leach into water supplies.
contaminate the environment with environmental estrogens.
And may increase the amount of environmental estrogens that can get inside our bodies.
Chance of developing breast cancer, because I know that what I do for the environment matters.
I can make choices.
I can make a difference.
I can tell others.
To get started, visit this website.
Now that was just the creepiest video. But it shows that they know, much like I figured out through science, that these metalloestrogens are everywhere, and they've been doing it for decades, feminizing us. And that's one of the reasons they spray the contrails. The metalloestrogens, an emerging class of inorganic xenoestrogens. I click on the one below that, a new class of cancer-causing estrogens. And here is greenmedinfo.com. This guy here, I'm scrolling up from the bottom. I stop at frankincense. You should get frankincense and myrrh in your life. Those are important things. This guy here reminds us this article is not intended to provide medical advice. He's talking about spraying metalloestrogens and getting them in our bodies, and here they are. Mercury, cadmium, lead, copper, iron, aluminum, beryllium, manganese, chromium, heavy metal, iron. All of these work in our body as estrogen precursors, feminizing both genders. The problem of aluminum and similar metalloestrogen exposure, however, is greater than simply reforming manufacturers and consumer products. The military releases at least 500 tons of aluminum shaft annually during training within selected military operating areas in the United States. And only clandestine organizations know how much metal has been released into the environment in the name of saving the earth through geoengineering. Indeed, in what is known as atmospheric aerosol spraying, our environment has increasingly become saturated through with metal pollution. The problem has become so bad that biotech corporations have begun engineering aluminum-resistant plants, since many soils have become too acidified due to metal contamination to adequately sustain plants that produce food. Wow. So I clicked on atmospheric aerosol spraying. It brought me to links of PubMed articles, and I clicked on contrails reduced daily temperature range. It gives me a PubMed ID number 121-67846, which brings up the formal scientific abstract, which I'm going to read aloud in a second. But you got to know the scale of these things. They can make nanoparticulate, you can pause on that is like air. Essentially looks like a cloud up high, but then it will precipitate and be like a rain. And so we have what we call chem rain. You know, it's like orange and makes you sneeze. This is what we're getting. These are the metalloestrogens. Now, when they spray to block the sun, they use metallic nanoparticles that reflect and block the sun's heat, because they're trying to block the UV, because they don't want it to get too hot, because God's trying to heat the place up. And if we get hip to that, we're going to come to God. They don't want that. The potential of condensation trails from jet aircraft to affect regional scale surface temperatures has been debated for years, but was difficult to verify until an opportunity arose as a result of the 3-day grounding of all commercial aircraft in the United States in the aftermath of 9/11. Here we show that there was an anomalous increase in the average diurnal temperature range, that is, the difference between the daily max and the nighttime minimum, for the period 11 to 14 September 2001. Because persisting contrails can reduce the transfer of both incoming solar and outgoing infrared radiation, and so reduce the daily temperature range. We attribute at least a portion of this anomaly to the absence of contrails over this period. Benefits of optimal testosterone. This is me. I drink raw milk, I drink distilled water, and my body came back. The other people, this is what I see in the hospital. This is what men look like nowadays. These are their problems. You can see the similarity between these two hormones. Now, it doesn't mean one is the other, and it doesn't even mean really that estrogen can work on a man or vice versa, but it's enough. It's enough to feminize us to some degree and to feminize women. They're just pushing the whole gender scale liberal, you know, like politically correct. And so we're getting moody, and we're coached to being moody. We're getting man boobs, and they're making us feel like it's kind of normal with these joke posters that we've seen for decades. And we've all been wondering, why are we getting man boobs? Well, here's what Michelangelo's statue of David might look like upon aging a few years and showing the effects of testosterone deficiency. That's what people look like in the hospital. These are what our men look like. They come in sick, they come in balding, they come in flabby, They don't have any strength or male endurance. And here you can see how cholesterol and testosterone are similar, with androstenedione being in the middle. So like Mark McGwire, the home run king, used to take that stuff, and it creates hormones. They're precursors. How to lower male estrogen levels naturally. These are just posters. They're coaching us to think that men should have high estrogen levels and yada yada. This is what we see in a hospital with men. Stroke, heart disease, loss of tone, body fat, and this is what we see in San Francisco with men. I know that because I lived there. It's part of the whole reason that I started to buck. When I went to nursing school, I was surrounded by women and men that weren't men. And special thanks to Mr. MBB333, who did his narration and is covering this from his home in Arizona. And I like to listen to people about their own place, much like I'm telling you about California. And then you can look and tell me about your hometown. Because I think that we're all getting hotter. The sun is way hotter than usual, and none of us are noticing it. I think they're spraying to hide the rapture. They're hiding the heat, and they're trying to feminize us. After that, they'll tell you they're spraying for absolutely any reason on earth, except for those three. Let's look at Revelation 8, verse 7. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of the trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. Chapter 16, verse 8. And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch men with fire. And men were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which hath power over these plagues. And they repented not to give him glory. So what I'm trying to tell you, it goes back long before 1990. The Bible is an old book. They've always known that there wasn't going to be much to hide. Climate change, climate chaos, global warming. So they put global warming together because it's not a globe, but they knew it was going to be warming. So it's a cognitive dissonance lie, prepping you to come up with another reason besides prophecy. This is prophesied. This is exactly how it said it will go down. It's written. You can just go through all the scriptures and read it out. It's in the Bible. Over and over and over again. The Lord is going to bring fire. Just think about it. If in a year's time, there's no wind, there's no rain, everything's burning, there's no water to defend it, there's no more shade from trees, because all the leaves are burnt off. It's like an endless summer of fire, and everybody's thirsty, and overheating, and they're cooking at nighttime, and hiding during the daytime, and the wild animals are attacking people. Would 3 years of record temperatures be enough of a warning? This is mercy. This is grace from God trying to tell us that this is the time that the prophecies are about to roll through. So this game of greenhouse gases, the ozone hole, global warming, all the linguistics, it's magic. It's trying to hide from you the understanding that this is from God. The hailstones, the heat, the climate chaos. But the heat. Oh, the heat. So let me backtrack. I came on this morning and there was a probability of precipitation button on the right side of Google. I clicked it. Going up from the bottom, I saw this. And I clicked it and it brought me here. This is the bottom of it. I clicked on this button here to end up here. At the top of it, it's basically an entire thing of brainwashing. You get all these words. This would take the normal person 35 minutes to read. Lost in brainwashing about why a meteorologist can't predict the rain. People don't mind when a forecaster predicts rain and it turns out to be a nice day. But if it rains when it isn't supposed to, they curse the weatherman for ruining their picnic. Okay, so the weatherman here is God, because rain comes from God. It's a blessing. So they get us to hate rain all the time. But that's totally sort of disassociated from the larger picture here, is that they're talking in large terms about how meteorologists go to this website and either say what this thing says, or they take the data that they get from there and try to make their own. And there's sort of like funding and compliance and really, weathermen just get to mail it in and take no responsibility for it at all. It's designed. And they have these long articles telling people why, weathermen are just stupid. Just do the weather. Relax. Shut up. Don't blame them. Stand up. Wear a cocktail dress at 9 in the morning. And do the weather. Because weathermen are always wrong. Because they have to be wrong. Because if they were right, they would be telling us that God is judging the world. And hiding in bunkers isn't going to help anybody. Which is what all the rich people are doing. Because they know it's happening. They think they're going to survive it. And they don't care that we're left on the surface of the earth to go through all this. They're trying to keep us up here. Think about it. They're just trying to get us to stick this out and think it's natural and part of Mother Nature's process. And it's our fault. And we should just lay here and take our punishment. That's not God's plan. God's will is that we see that what's going on in the weather couldn't be done by the hands of man. That it's of God. That it's a warning. This is mercy. It's grace. The weatherman knows God's in control of the weather. Now, I know that we spray, but we can't do too much. We can seed some clouds. We can mist nano-reflective metallic particles like confetti to block the UV rays because they have to be opaque. So that means they're probably lead or gold or something shiny like silver or aluminum. And these things have an effect on our hormones. They're taken as estrogens, making the world's men effeminate while blocking the heat from the sun progressively more and more as the time draws nearer and nearer. And these guys, their job is to obfuscate the entire time. Nobody ever believes a weatherman. It's like he's casting spells over everybody, trying to get them just to go with it. Remember that the book of Revelation has not happened yet. These are prophecies. And God doesn't ever do anything cold or by surprise. What we see now is mercy. It's warning by the God of grace, the God of mercy. That is it. Thanks for listening. Please feel in your heart if you may like to contribute or buy a mug. Praise Jesus. This is FPS. Maranatha.